1,000-pound sisters Chris Combs, the Pound 1. Although Chris Combs' family is by his side, they have kept his stomach cancer a secret from him because they know he would be crushed if he found out. The famous Chishtar's disease has spread so far that doctors say he cannot be rescued. There were soft machine beeps, a chilly antiseptic odor, and the soft hum of an air conditioner that felt too peaceful for the raging tempest within the Combs family's hearts. In a hospital bed, Chris Combs, who used to be the biggest voice at family dinners, laid quietly while using an oxygen tube to breathe. His skin was as pale as winter skies, and his once well-groomed thick beard had grown uneven. Chris had received what he thought was his last examination following his weight loss struggle just a few months prior. He believed that the doctors were merely looking for any after effects of his previous procedure. 1,000-pound sisters. However, his family's life was rocked by an unanticipated revelation behind closed doors. The illness had progressed beyond treatment. The doctors whispered that the decision was more difficult than the diagnosis. He's not sure. Additionally, given his emotional state, we advise not telling him just yet. All night long, Amy sobbed into her hoodie. Tammy, who would typically argue about everything, sat motionless as if she were a statue. Michael, their brother, gritted his teeth till his head began to ache. They had never concealed anything from Chris, but now they had to conceal the most important one. Chris thought the treatment was for a minor gastrointestinal problem. He still had a sense of humor, although a diminished one. One afternoon, when Amy was helping him eat soup, he quipped, "Y'all, I ain't dying. I'll be running again if you just give me a cheeseburger." Amy forced a smile. In an attempt to keep the soup from spilling, her hands trembled. Tammy gently brushed his arm as she rolled her wheelchair closer. She whispered, attempting to sound tough, "You're annoying enough to outlive us all." Chris coughed violently after laughing. None of them revealed the real cause of his suffering. His body was weakening, but no one explained why. The family had a meeting at home without Chris. 1,000-pound sisters. The table was covered with tissues. It was too difficult to breathe under the stress. Amy clenched her fist. "He should be aware. He's our brother." Tears filled Tammy's eyes as she retaliated. "So what? Do we shatter him? Before the cancer manifests itself, we murder him with the news." "He's fragile. He just found happiness after losing weight," Michael muttered to himself. "He very recently began to live." There was an intolerable quiet in the room. They were lying to keep him calm, not to defend themselves. Love can occasionally become too much to bear. As the days went by, Chris started to lose more weight. Not from diet or surgery, but rather from the cancer that was slowly eating away at him. He stopped making jokes, but he remained hopeful. He smiled at recollections while seeing films of his family's past festivities and inquired, "Can we have a large BBQ when I get home? If you allow me, I'll cook." Well, despite the crack in her voice, Amy nodded. "Yes, a large barbecue. Make a promise." Tammy wheeled over and took his hand in hers. "Everyone will be present." Chris's gaze grew softer. "You mean together? Whatever occurs." "Always," Tammy muttered. The family had feared that the moment was coming, and the doctor verified this a few weeks later. On his last night, Chris was accompanied by the Combs family. Like a silent farewell from the sky, the room was painted red and gold as the sunset peeked through the window. 1,000-pound sisters, with Amy on one side, Tammy on the other, and Michael placing a palm over his heart. Chris felt warm hands embracing him. He sensed their affection even if he didn't know the truth. Perhaps that was sufficient. "Best family ever," he said quietly as he drifted off to sleep. "Remember that always." His breathing calmed down. They had no regrets in assuring him that he would survive. Every day they thought they would always have more time was a day they wished they had not. Protecting someone from suffering they are unable to bear might occasionally be the greatest act of kindness. And love will sometimes break you in order to save someone else. But the Slayton sisters had always wanted to see the world. For years, they browsed through pictures of famous locations on the internet, watched travel vlogs, and pondered what it would be like to leave Kentucky and travel to a far-off place. The time has finally come after months of preparation. Amy and Tammy planned to travel to London, England. It all began when Amy got an email from a British television program called Worldwide Wellness Stories, which wanted to feature the sisters after seeing their weight loss journey. Their vacation, including accommodation and ticket costs, would be covered by the event. Tammy's eyes brightened as if she had won the lotto when she heard. "London? Like London's Big Ben?" Tammy yelled. Amy said, "Yes, girl," with tea, biscuits, and those red phone booths. Wheezing with delight, Tammy clapped her hands. "Do they provide fries and fish?" "Actual ones." Amy gave a theatrical nod. "Yes, Tammy, the original edition, like fish and chips from the first print." Both of them let out a scream. The Slayton house appeared as though a tornado had struck a clothes store 2 weeks prior to the flight. Amy was adamant about dressing like a style icon, 1,000 pounds sisters. She tried on a variety of clothes while standing in front of the mirror, including glitter hoodies, stretchy jeans, and shirts that said Queen of Snacks and size extra extra fabulous. Tammy, meanwhile, grappled with the most important choice of her life. Which headbands should I bring? She arranged 43 of them on her bed, including tie-dye, floral, glittery, and her favorite, the enormous pink unicorn headband. Amy sighed. "Just pack like 6, Tammy." 6? I swap out headbands more often than you do, Amy. Tammy finally whittled it down to 12 after much discussion. Advancement? What they would eat on the plane was one of their biggest worries. Additionally, Slim Jims, as you never know. Tammy's eyebrow went up. "You are aware that food is served on flights, correct?" Amy folded her arms. "Yes, but what if it's small, upscale food? What if it is similar to a single leaf of lettuce?" Tammy took a sharp breath. "Oh no, the ocean could cause us to starve." Because she felt that you should take your movie snack to the next level, Tammy added a few of her own foods, primarily popcorn. The weight restriction presented the sisters with even another difficulty when everything was packed. The scale emitted a beep. Amy's bag weighed 52 pounds, which was more than allowed. Tammy explained, "It's because you packed your entire closet." "No, my emergency snack suitcase is to blame." Tammy gave a shrug. "Priorities." They opened the suitcase and began eating some snacks right there to minimize weight. "You see? Problem solving," Tammy said, munching. For a tea gathering, Amy chose a lovely dress. Tammy also desired a royal appearance. She wore a glittery dress and inquired, "Do I resemble the queen?" Amy narrowed her eyes. "Well, perhaps the Walmart queen?" Both of them started laughing so hard that their eyes started to well up with tears. The house was at last silent the night before the flight. Tammy pondered as she sat by the window. London seemed like an opportunity to feel good about herself. She was heading somewhere she never thought she could go after learning to live differently and fighting for her health. Amy arrived and gave her a hug. "This is what we're actually doing." Tammy gave a nod. "Ames, we're going to travel the world." "And have some chips and fish." Tammy gave a sniff. More chips. The sisters were prepared. Despite the fact that their suitcases were heavy, their clothes were disorganized, and they had enough snacks to feed an army, they were enthusiastic, driven, and full of life. Tammy gazed up at the sky while Amy made one final check of the travel tickets. "London, take note. The Slayton sisters are on the way." 1,000 pounds sisters. The Queen of England also unintentionally sneezed somewhere. But when Amy Slayton woke up, her alarm was buzzing like a grumpy bee, and the sun had just risen over Dixon, Kentucky. Her heart was racing with a mixture of worry and excitement as she stretched her arms and rubbed her eyes. It wasn't just a weigh-in today. Everything could change today. While baby Glenn slept soundly in his cot, her son Gage was playing with toy cars in the living room. Amy's greatest inspiration was her grin. "I've come too far to stop now," she said to herself. Tammy Slayton was waiting for her oxygen machine to settle her breathing while seated in her wheelchair across the little room. Her lungs constricted with the chilly air. Weigh-in days were something she detested. They brought up memories of her past, including the suffering, setbacks, and ongoing criticism from others. Her late husband, Caleb, had died months earlier. She was plagued by a deep grief that she was unable to shake. Each weigh-in seemed like a test of her heart as much as her body, but she was resolute today. "Sis, is it time to do this?" Amy cried out from the entrance. Tammy grinned crookedly as she looked up. "Yes. Come on, let's beat that scale." The clinic drive. With a large SUV full of anxious, laughing baby toys and sisters who had fought more wars together than most people would ever know, they navigated the peaceful morning streets. Through the window of his truck, their brother Chris cheered them on as he followed. Anxious, Amy continued looking at her mirror. What if she won? What if her progress was hampered by the stress of motherhood? She let out a breath and clenched her hands. Meanwhile, Tammy gazed out the window. She recalled all the nights she sobbed in private because she was too ashamed to acknowledge her fear. Sometimes, losing weight was an emotional torment in addition to a physical one. However, she was no longer alone. Within the clinic, with a smile that was both stern and supportive, Dr. Smith greeted them. He had witnessed their worst. He wanted to see their finest today. He responded forcefully, "All right, girls, who wants to go first?" Before she could think, Amy got to her feet. "Let's just finish this." On the scale, she stepped. The figures blinked. Everyone leaned in. 297 pounds. The room went cold. Abruptly, there was a burst of applause. Amy wept and hid her face. "I succeeded. I'm less than 300. God, oh God," after giving Dr. Smith a hug, she held onto Tammy's hand. "It's your turn. Let's make it worthwhile." Tammy's moment. Tammy stepped onto the scale gingerly. She could hear her heart pounding in her ears. Her feet were properly positioned by the nurse. The machine calculated by beeping. The numbers finally showed up. 419 pounds. Quiet. 1,000 pounds sisters. Tammy took a sharp breath. Her gaze expanded. "You've lost 150 pounds since our last major weigh-in," said Dr. Smith with a delighted smile. Chris leaped with joy. Amy started crying once more. Unable to contain her tears, Tammy sobbed aloud, but this time it was out of happiness rather than sorrow. She muttered, I thought I couldn't do it without Caleb." Amy whispered, "You did it for him. But you did it for yourself as well." The family got together for a little party later that night. They ate grilled chicken, vegetables, and lemon-flavored water in place of fast food and sugary desserts. It felt triumphant, even though it wasn't glamorous. Amy glanced to her sister as they sat outside and enjoyed the sunset. "Are you aware of the significance of today?" Tammy grinned with pride. "Indeed. It indicates that, at least not collectively, we are no longer the 1,000 Lilby sisters." They held hands while laughing. Their trip does not finish here. A new one had begun, one in which they were healthier, stronger, and at last full of hope. Losing weight wasn't the true triumph. Every day, they made the decision for themselves. Amy and Tammy recovered a portion of their lives, their self-assurance, and their future with each pound they shed. But Amy Slayton was sitting at her kitchen table, drinking peppermint tea when the early morning sun peeked through the blinds. Her life had been a whirlwind of hospital stays, emotional breakdowns, and the weight of being a mother while attempting to maintain her own health a year prior. Today, however, was different. Calm. Hopeful. As if she could breathe at last. Amy gazed at the image of herself in the teacup. She was no longer the same person who made excuses and hid behind mountains of junk food. She was getting better, albeit slowly and painfully. She thought she deserved it for the first time in a very long time. Chapter 1. A Self-Promise. She muttered, "I'm doing this for myself." Amy tied her hair in a tight ponytail and rolled up her sleeves. She entered a tiny digital scale, which had been her worst adversary for years. Although the figure wasn't ideal, it was nevertheless a step forward. 1,000 pounds sisters. Once, it seemed difficult for her to grin. Gage, her kid, was racing toy trucks across the floor while giggling from the living room. Glenn, in his baby seat, cooed. Amy's eyes examined them resolutely. They are entitled to a healthy mother. I also deserve to live a healthy life. Still recuperating from her own fight with food addiction, surgeries, and personal struggles, Tammy slid into the kitchen on her scooter. People had always said the sisters couldn't change, but here they were, proving everyone wrong. "You got that warrior look, sis," Tammy mocked. Amy chuckled. "It's called believing in myself." Tammy poked her shoulder. "I'm proud of you." Together, the sisters had fought, wept, and given up. But they were also the reason each of them lived. They weren't simply siblings, they were soul anchors. Amy's healing wasn't just physical. She was learning to let go of trauma, poisonous relationships, and guilt. She joined a small support group where women talked about emotional eating, sadness, and single motherhood. For the first time, Amy expressed her truth without shame. "I used to eat to feel loved," she confessed, tears in her eyes. "I'm learning to love who I am without food now." There was a gentle clap in the room. Not because she had lost weight, but because she had lost emotional suffering. She felt lighter. The smell of fresh veggies, grilled chicken, and fruit smoothies filled the kitchen that had formerly been brimming with munchies. Amy discovered how to prepare the meals she loved in healthy ways. Potatoes were swapped out with mashed cauliflower, greasy buckets are replaced with air-fried wings. Desserts, too. Sugary snacks were swapped out for black chocolate pudding. She grinned and said, "I'm not giving up flavor. I'm letting go of the things that hurt me." Months went by. Through tears, sweat, losses, and triumphs, Amy persevered. She then stood on the scale once more one December morning. She was 192 pounds lighter than when she began. The number displayed. Her heart pounded. Her eyes were both joyful and incredulous as she covered her mouth. She nearly lost her equilibrium when Tammy gave her a strong embrace. "Amy, you succeeded. You succeeded," Amy sobbed. "Together, we accomplished it." Gage hurried after Amy as she strode across a nearby park, pushing Glenn's pram. She wasn't hiding, embarrassed, or out of breath. She was still alive. People grinned at her because she was radiant like sunshine, not because of a TV show. Amy wasn't merely recovering physically. She was mending her identity, her motherhood, her future, and her spirit. Again with strength, she muttered to herself, "This life is something I deserve. I deserved it." Conclusion. But the streets of Dixon, Kentucky were painted red and blue by flashing police lights just as the sun had risen. The beloved 1000 LB Sisters star, Amy Slayton, was standing shakily close to the passenger door of her dirty minivan. Soon, rumors would circulate, the cameras would roll, news headlines would shout. However, television wasn't the focus of this moment. Amy, a damaged mother who had reached her breaking point, was the subject of the story. Amy had been in a downward spiral for weeks. She started hanging around with the wrong people after she lost a lot of weight quickly, went through a divorce, and had to raise 2 boys by herself. What began as just something to calm her nerves turned into an unbreakable addiction. The police message from early in the morning said, "Controlled substance possession?" Tammy froze as she heard the news. Food, affirmation, and emotional dependency were the addictions she had battled for the majority of her life, and she could see those same demons looking back at her through Amy's picture on E! The Slayton family met at a tiny rehabilitation counseling facility 2 days later. It was a heavy room. Tammy sat silently in her wheelchair, leaning on her oxygen tube without makeup or filters, as Chris paced uneasily and Amanda gripped a tissue. Amy's eyes were puffy when she entered. She appeared to have gone days without sleep. She tried to smile as she whispered, "Hey, y'all." 1,000 pounds, sisters. Nobody responded. Tammy just rolled forward, tears welling up in her eyes. "We are here because we love you, Amy. You're not feeling well. We won't lose you either." Amy had taken care of Tammy for years, through surgeries, near-death experiences, and recuperation. The positions were now flipped, with Tammy battling to save her. Amy was gently asked to sit beside the counselor. As he spoke, Chris's voice broke. "You are needed by your lads, not a version of yourself who need medication to survive. You're more resilient than this. You were always." Amy started crying. She acknowledged for the first time that she'd been lying to herself in an attempt to dull the pain she had never discussed, including her ex's abuse, hate from the internet, mom guilt, and her fear of failing. Tammy embraced her fiercely as she sobbed into her hands. The world has now broken the 2 sisters who were once broken by their bodies. Amy was asked one question by the counselor. "Are you willing to defend yourself?" Amy gave a slow nod. "I don't want my boys to be raised without a mother figure. I also don't want to lose myself." She was there for hours of therapy, signed paperwork, and a 30-day treatment plan. However, she wasn't afraid for the first time. She had hope. 1,000 pound sisters, Tammy pledged to look after the children as much as she could while Amy went to rehab. Amanda and Chris split up the work. Online support from fans erupted. The hashtag #WeLoveYouAmy was trending for 8 hours in a row. Later, Amy shared a handwritten letter from her rehab. "Greetings and welcome to my channel, lovely viewers. My name is Mina and I hope you're having a great day. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the video.